The dust settles from the US election. There are some clear lessons emerging for Australia's politicians. Many on the left seem intent to bury their heads in the sand and not acknowledge the clear realignment that has occurred, with working class voters once rusted onto Labor now moving further to the right. However, there are some who are already sounding the alarm, arguing that the US experience is not isolated and that it's been happening here for some time. One such person, leading pollster, director of the Redbridge group, Samaras, who hit the nail over the weekend, writing that parties that once fought for the working class are now, in many cases, he said, more focused on social issues that resonate with their new, more urban professional support base. Pleased to say Samaras, a pollster, joins me now. Well, Cos, thank you for your time. I love your analysis because you're deep inside the Labor Party, the Labor movement for most of your life. You understand them as I argue I would understand my side of politics. Give us your sense of the lessons out of the US election for the left, because Trump just didn't squeak over the line here. It's a landslide win. He got every single one of those swing states. He got the popular vote. It looks like he's got both chambers, and he got sort of around 312 electoral college numbers. Yep. Give us your assessment.
It's his electoral coalition's the most diverse, I think, since Reagan in 1984, and that's surpassing Reagan's effort in 1984. Hispanics have moved to the Republican Party now in significant numbers. I remember back in 2016 when we were having conversations with the Democrats as a result of their loss to Trump, that they needed to focus on class politics, and their response at the time was that they were confident that the demographics will fix their problem. They were resting their hopes on the Hispanics basically coming to the rescue. It was obviously a very significant cohort of voters and a growing one at that. But it looks like on the last week they moved in very big numbers over to Trump, and have been for some time, which is a broader story of what we're seeing here in this country with regards to low income earners.
What about women in the black vote, particularly black men up 25, even black women up against a black woman? But almost every demographic. I mean, I made the point, I think, on the night of the election. The biggest decider wasn't all the tribes we divide ourselves into these days. It was those that have and those that have not. And that crosses across everything. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, what Trump has done is not necessarily provide these working people with a hope that he's going to fix all their problems. That's not what this is about. What this is about is basically low-income Americans feeling like they have become invisible, that the political discussion in that country has always been about everything but them. And once upon a time, the Democrats would have these individuals at the forefront of every conversation they were having. And you could say the same thing applies here in Australia with the Labor Party, where once upon a time, these low-income earners are people that stack our shelves, deliver our food, make sure the country just operates, were once upon a time rejoiced and admired by a political party that wanted their support. They're becoming invisible. So what Trump has done has made them visible, and that's why they are supporting him. They know he's not going to deliver miracles for them.
All right, we'll get into the coalition in a moment, but what are the lessons out of this for Labor?
Yeah, look, Labor's has been having a looming and growing problem with the same groups of voters that we've been just talking about. But here in Australia, if you look at Northern Tasmania, the Labor primary vote has been declining rapidly for now over a decade. The Labor primary in that state, in the northern part of Tassie in particular, is in the 20s in some places. They've lost Braddon, Bass. At a state election, they're down into the high 20s. The crossbench is larger.
Lyons is dicey too. Lyons is dicey.
That's right, correct, absolutely. And that I expect, will fall at the next election. Almost put my money on that one. Then you go to Queensland state election. Normally when Labor loses in a normal election, not the sort of 2012 landslide, it loses seats in parts of Brisbane like Mansfield, middle urban, middle class type of electorates that used to be considered as bellwether electorates. Well, Mansfield stayed on the Labor side because it's now full of young professionals, high-income constituencies. Where did it get in trouble? Its foundational seats, Rockhampton, Mackay, these seats they've held for over 100 years. The Labor Party was born in Queensland. It was the first Labor Party in the world. And these 2 seats were its foundational seats, or one of, or a group of them anyway. So they lost those seats. Where else did they have swings against them? Ipswich, Logan, outer suburban, dirt poor parts of Brisbane. And again, we go back to 2022. Where did Labor get into trouble as it was coming into government? Well, Melbourne's outer western suburbs. The federal seat of Fowler, again, it's low income, diverse communities, struggling with the day-to-day cost of living pressures, even back then. So it's been here for some time.
Yeah, but you made the point, I think this is very, very shrewd in a post I read, that just because Trump has picked up these diverse communities, the working class vote in the United States is not a direct translation to Australia for the coalition. They are still seen somewhat elite, somewhat, top end of town. That's accurate, isn't it? And why is that?
Absolutely. They're part of the problem. So they're not, the coalition has not successfully repainted itself as a Trump solution. Trump is a disruptor. He is different to the establishment Republican Party. In Australia, there isn't that third element. So when we interview and talk to many of these types of voters that I've just been talking about, former Labor voters or people that have a history of voting Labor, who are working class in the outer suburbs and regions of this country, yes, they want to vote against Labor, but they actually don't have another option. So they're in a departure lounge at the moment. Now, Albanese's risk is they just come to the election day and go, bugger it, I'm going to vote for the coalition for the first time in my life. And that's a possibility. We're seeing some bits of evidence around that. But
we saw that with Howard, we saw that with Abbott too.
Right.
Peter Dutton's not there yet.
No, absolutely not. And, it does boil down to obviously the economic narrative that the coalition is going to take the next election. They need to stop, using languages like we're going to tackle inflation by fixing productivity. Well, productivity of these working people that we've been talking about is a dirty word because they know what that means. It means lower wages, worse conditions, working you to the bone for less pay. I mean, that's basically what productivity means. So they've got a way to go before they actually capture the hearts and minds of these people.
You're not wrong. And I think that the direct language of Trump, I'm not going to tax your overtime, I'm not going to tax your tips, all very tangible, digestible policies. That's what he was selling in terms of the economy. He wasn't selling the stuff that an economist might read in a policy document. It was absolute real politics is what made the difference. Cos, thanks for your analysis. Always great to have you on the show.